Welcome to Beyond the Mind, a space where philosophy, mysticism, and science meet. Today we are going to explore the ancient science of breath. Breath was the original user interface. Long before scalpels and scanners, long before color maps of the brain and wearable heart monitors, people noticed that the way they breathed changed what they noticed, how they felt, and how well they could pay attention. Teachers placed hands on ribs and bellies and counted rhythms. Some called those practices prayer. Others called them discipline. Many called them medicine. Today we speak a different language: neurons, circuits, neurotransmitters, and it's tempting to think attention lives only in the folds of the cortex. But what if breath is both ritual and mechanism? What if a handful of seconds of paced breathing is a simple, reliable input that shifts the brain's operating state? I want to show you how that works, why it matters, and then guide you through a practical test you can do yourself. Imagine a teacher in a quiet room pointing, ever so gently, to a student's chest and saying, "Breathe here." To an outsider, that gesture looks like ceremony, a piece of theater. Palms on the chest, a counting of beats, a soft insistence on technique. But gestures encode instructions. The pointing is a command. Slow down, notice, modulate. Across traditions, from Pranayama to Sufi breathing, from Taoist microcosmic orbit practices to indigenous breath-focused rituals, people learn to vary rhythm, length, and emphasis. Some practices lengthen the exhale. Other practices emphasize rapid inhalations to energize. Practitioners for centuries reported calmer minds, sharper focus, and less reactive behavior. Modern science asks a sharper question: what exactly changes inside the body when we alter the rhythm of our breath, and how do those changes influence attention? To answer that, we need to look at two linked pieces: the mechanics inside the chest and the long, bidirectional wiring that carries signals from body to brain. The first piece is straightforward physics. When you inhale, your diaphragm descends and your chest cavity expands, creating a pressure change. Those pressure changes influence venous return to the heart, the filling of the cardiac chambers, and momentarily alter the timing of heartbeats. When you exhale, the reverse happens. This rhythmic dance between inhalation and exhalation produces a natural fluctuation in heart rate called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. It has a technical name, but the idea is simple. Heart rate tends to speed up slightly during inhalation and slow down during exhalation. The magnitude of that fluctuation, how much the heart speeds and slows in sync with breath, is a measurable signature of how the body is communicating internal states. The second piece is the vagus nerve. The vagus is a cranial nerve that runs like a communication superhighway between the brainstem and many organs, heart, lungs, and gut among them. Through the vagus, mechanical and chemical signals created by breathing are translated into electrical messages that reach central autonomic hubs in the brain. Those hubs, including structures like the nucleus tractus solitarius, project to other centers that regulate arousal and cognitive states. In short, breathing changes chest pressures alter vagal signals recalibrate brain systems that determine how readily you focus or get distracted. Researchers often quantify this interaction using heart rate variability, or HRV. HRV describes the small, moment-to-moment differences in the time between heartbeats. Contrary to what many expect, more variability within a healthy range is a sign of physiological flexibility. High HRV is associated with an autonomic system that can adapt, calming when danger passes, activating when challenge appears. Experimental studies show that specific breathing patterns, generally slow, regular cycles with a longer exhale than inhale, tend to increase HRV and the amplitude of respiratory sinus arrhythmia. Those physiological shifts often correlate with improved performance on tasks requiring sustained attention and with better emotional regulation. That's not a single bulletproof claim. It's a pattern repeated across multiple controlled and observational studies. It's important to grasp that attention is not a single entity sitting somewhere in the brain like a light bulb you can flip. Attention is implemented by interacting networks. The frontoparietal network that enables task-focused work, the salience network that detects important signals, and the default mode network that handles inward thought. These networks don't operate in isolation. Their activity is influenced by neuromodulatory systems, noradrenergic, cholinergic, and dopaminergic systems that set the brain's global responsiveness, the gain by which neurons respond to inputs. Those neuromodulatory centers are sensitive to signals coming up from the body. In particular, the nucleus tractus solitarius and related structures relay vagal input to neuromodulatory centers like the locus coeruleus. In other words, breath-driven vagal signals can nudge neuromodulatory tone and thereby tune network dynamics in ways that favor either calm, focused processing, or heightened vigilance and distractibility. This resolves the historical paradox. Ancient teachers observed that breath affects mind because breath literally alters the body's inputs to the brain. Modern physiology provides the mechanism. Breath is ritual and breath is signal. It functions like code in the sense that a brief, repeated set of instructions, inhale, hold, exhale, consistently produces measurable changes in the body that the brain interprets. Understanding the mechanics and the networks is helpful, but the practical question is this: can you use breath to reliably shift attention in everyday life? The answer is yes, with caveats. The effects are usually modest, individually variable, and sensitive to context. That said, breathing protocols are low cost, low risk for most people, and they provide immediate, testable feedback. So let's try a short, science-minded experiment. Measure, intervene, measure again. You will need about 6 minutes and a simple attention task. The attention task should be brief and consistent. Count how many times a dot changes color on a screen, count how many short tones you detect, or mark how many target digits appear in a rapidly changing sequence. If you prefer analog, you can use a sheet with a random array of symbols and count instances of one symbol in 60 seconds. The key is to keep the same task before and after the breathing practice. Start with a 1-minute baseline. Sit comfortably with your back supported if possible. For 60 seconds, perform the attention task using whatever device you choose and record your score. Also note a quick subjective descriptor: distracted, neutral, alert, foggy. This baseline is your datum. Next, perform 3 minutes of paced breathing. Use a 4-second inhale followed by a 6-second exhale. The pattern biases the breath toward a longer exhalation, which tends to engage parasympathetic activity more strongly. If 4-6 feels too long, use 4/5. The essential rule is to make the exhale longer than the inhale. Keep the inhale gentle, the exhale steady. Relax your shoulders and unclench your jaw. If at any point you feel lightheaded, return to normal breathing. After 3 minutes of paced breathing, immediately repeat the 1-minute attention task and record your post-breathing score. Again, note how you feel in a single word. What do many people notice? Often there is a modest improvement in accuracy or reaction time, and a subjective sense of clearer focus or emotional calm. Physiologically, that can coincide with an increase in HRV and a stronger respiratory sinus arrhythmia signal during the breathing period. Those changes are not miraculous, and they vary with baseline fitness, medication, and autonomic balance. Still, the effect is frequently robust enough to be useful. A 3-minute reset you can deploy before focused work, public speaking, or when emotions escalate. There are multiple layers to why this works. First, the physiological route. Altering chest pressures and vagal signaling changes neuromodulatory tone and network gain. Second, the attentional training route. Focusing on breath is an interoceptive exercise, monitoring internal signals and coordinating them with timing. That practice strengthens the capacity to direct attention. Third, the conditioning route. Repeated pairing of a breathing cue and an improved state creates a habit-like transition mechanism. Over days and weeks, the cue itself, placing your hand on your chest, a particular rhythm, becomes sufficient to trigger a shift. To make breath practice practical, cultivate a small toolkit of micro-practices tuned to different goals. For calming and reducing reactivity, try the long exhale pattern. Inhale 4 seconds, exhale 8. Emphasizing the exhale recruits parasympathetic influence and reduces sympathetic arousal. For quick activation when you feel sluggish or drowsy, try short, brisk cycles, 2-second inhale and 2-second exhale for 30 to 60 seconds. That pattern tends to increase alertness. For a balanced reset that also trains attention, try box breathing. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. 1 minute of box breathing can blunt acute stress and sharpen subsequent focus. For cultivating interoceptive sensitivity, try a gentle alternate nostril awareness. Take slow, calm breaths and softly shift attention from the airflow sensation in one nostril to the other. This is less about strict mechanics and more about training the brain to notice subtle internal signals. If you want to move beyond subjective reports, tools like chest straps and some wrist sensors can display HRV in near real time. Using biofeedback transforms practice from guessing into calibration. Watch HRV rise as you adjust breathing and discover which ratios produce the largest effect for you. For many practitioners, that combination of felt sense and numerical feedback accelerates learning and helps identify the most effective patterns. A few scientific notes and safety cautions are important. First, HRV and respiratory sinus arrhythmia are often used as correlational markers. High HRV is associated with better cognitive and emotional outcomes across many studies, but it is not a magic bullet guaranteeing performance. Second, individual responses vary. Fitness level, age, medications, and baseline autonomic tone influence outcomes. People with cardiovascular or respiratory conditions, or those on drugs that affect heart rate, should consult a clinician before starting structured breathing practices. Third, extreme techniques, hyperventilation, prolonged forced breath holds, or very rapid breathwork practiced without supervision can provoke adverse effects like lightheadedness, tingling, or panic in some individuals. Gentle, modest practice yields the most reliable information and the lowest risk for most people. If you adopt the 3-minute experiment as a regular habit, once or twice daily for a week, you begin to collect personal data that matters. Record baseline and post-breathing scores and a one-word subjective note each time. After 7 or 10 sessions, patterns emerge. Perhaps morning practices deliver larger improvements than evening ones. Maybe the effect is attenuated after a strong coffee. Maybe on high-stress days, the marginal benefit is larger. Those patterns are scientifically valuable because they tell you how your system responds under different contexts. Self-experimentation, when done with consistency and curiosity, is one of the most practical tools we have for translating group-level science into individualized practice. There are social and behavioral benefits too. Using breath as a small ritual before meetings, presentations, or creative work creates a boundary marker. The act of pausing for 3 minutes signals your brain that you are transitioning into a focused state. That ritual quality helps make practice sustainable. Tiny, repeatable habits are easier to maintain than massive, infrequent efforts. Over time, the ritual becomes a reliable trigger. It helps to reframe what improvement means in this context. Most shifts are modest, a few percentage points of accuracy, a slight speed up in reaction time, or a subtle reduction in distractibility. Those small changes compound. A 3-minute reset before a 45-minute deep work block can reduce interruptions and increase the quality of attention across the entire session. The cumulative effect, practiced daily, can be substantial. There is also conceptual clarity to gain. Breath does not implant new knowledge into your brain or do the work of concentrating for you. Rather, it manipulates the internal conditions that make concentration more likely. Think of it like priming an instrument before you play. Tune the instrument and the music sounds better. Tune the nervous system and attention functions more smoothly. If you want to deepen the practice, here are a few reproducible protocols you can try over the next month. Protocol A, the daily probe. Twice a day, perform the 1-minute baseline, 3 minutes of 4-6 paced breathing, and 1-minute post-test. Log both scores and a 1-word feeling. After 2 weeks, analyze whether average post-test scores improve relative to baseline and whether subjective descriptors shift toward calm and sharp. Protocol B, biofeedback calibration. Use an HRV-capable device and test various inhalation/exhalation ratios. March 3rd, April 6th, April 8th, May 5th, to see which ratio yields the greatest increase in HRV without discomfort. Use that personalized ratio in your daily practice. Protocol C, contextual deployment. Identify 3 moments during your week when you typically lose focus. Start of a long task, pre-meeting jitter, mid-afternoon slump. Try a 1 to 3-minute breathing reset at each moment and track whether the number of interruptions or self-reported distraction decreases. A final thought about the historical and experiential frame. When ancient teachers called breath prana, chi, or life force, they were pointing to an embodied reality, a fast, accessible way to change the internal milieu. Modern science reframes that reality in terms of vagal tone, HRV, and neuromodulatory systems, but the lived experience remains. Practicing breath is learning to participate in a conversation your body already speaks. It is a small act of stewardship over your nervous system. So now spend the 6 minutes. Sit quietly. Do 1 minute of baseline attention measurement. Breathe for 3 minutes with a 4-second inhale and a 6-second exhale. Repeat the 1-minute attention task and write down your score and a single-word descriptor of how you feel. If you commit to repeating this probe over several days, you will generate your own data. Use that data to refine which patterns work best for you and when. Breathe gently, notice the effects, and treat this as a simple experiment rather than a promise of dramatic transformation. Breath is not a panacea, but it is a reliable lever. In a world that often demands complex tools and elaborate routines, the 3-minute pause is a profoundly efficient intervention. The mind is never only in the head. It is a continuous conversation between body and brain, and breath is one of the clearest phrases in that conversation. Learn the phrase, test the effect, and let repeated practice teach you how your nervous system prefers to be steered.